The clock ticked softly in the living room, a sound that once blended with laughter but now echoed through silence. The air was heavy, the kind that made breathing feel like a task. Nadia sat on the edge of the worn-out couch, her hands clasped tightly around a chipped mug of cold tea. Across from her, her son, Ian, scrolled through his phone, his jaw clenched, eyes never lifting to meet hers. The distance between them wasn't measured in feet. It was made of years of resentment, broken trust, and words left unsaid. He was 17, tall and quiet, with his father's eyes and her temper. Every time she looked at him, she saw the ghost of the man who had walked out on them, leaving her to patch up a home that was already collapsing. The divorce had changed everything. Ian had stopped talking the day his father left, as if silence was his way of punishing her. She tried to reach out, cooked his favorite meals, asked about school, left notes on his desk, but his responses were sharp and cold. "Don't act like you care," he once snapped, eyes glistening with unshed tears. It wasn't just anger, it was heartbreak disguised as hate. He believed she had driven his father away, that her tears and temper had destroyed what little peace they had. Every argument between them seemed to reopen the same wound. Some nights, Nadia would stand outside his door, listening to the muffled sound of music thudding through his headphones, wondering if he ever missed her. She missed him, missed the way he used to climb into her lap after a nightmare, the way he'd laugh so hard that milk came out of his nose. But those days were gone, replaced by an icy formality that made her own home feel like a stranger's house. She worked double shifts at the clinic, came home exhausted, and found his dinner untouched. His eyes, when they did meet hers, were full of judgment, silent accusations that cut deeper than any words could. She didn't blame him entirely. The house had lost its warmth long before he noticed. She was always tired, always anxious. Bills piled up, memories haunted her, and she couldn't remember the last time she'd smiled without forcing it. Ian saw her crumble and mistook it for weakness. To him, she wasn't a mother trying to survive. She was the reason his world had cracked. One evening, she found him sitting in the backyard, the sun dipping low behind him. His face was hardened, but his eyes flickered with pain. She walked closer, her voice trembling as she said, "I know you hate me, Ian, but I'm still here." He didn't turn around. He just whispered almost to himself, "You always say that, but you're never really here, Mom." And in that moment, she realized it wasn't his anger that broke her. It was his truth. The tension in the house grew like a storm that refused to pass. Every word Nadia spoke seemed to trigger Ian. Every silence between them seemed louder than any argument. She could feel his resentment in the way he walked past her, his shoulders stiff, his eyes deliberately avoiding hers. It was as if every corner of the home had absorbed his anger, the walls, the furniture, even the smell of the air. The kitchen, once filled with the aroma of her cooking and his laughter, had become a battleground of glances and heavy breathing. He barely ate anymore, and when he did, it was standing with his back to her. When she started seeing someone new, everything shattered further. She hadn't planned it. She hadn't even wanted it. The Narration was gentle and patient, a colleague who made her feel human again. For the first time in years, she smiled without guilt. But Ian noticed the change instantly. He began coming home later, locking himself in his room, and blasting music so loud the neighbors complained. One night, when Rehan dropped her off at home and she hugged him goodbye at the gate, Ian was standing in the doorway, watching. His expression was unreadable, but his eyes burned with something darker than anger, betrayal. After that night, the air in the house became suffocating. He stopped calling her Mom. He started addressing her by her name. "Nadia, you forgot to pay the Wi-Fi bill. Nadia, don't touch my things." Each word landed like a blow, small but deliberate. She wanted to scream, to remind him who she was, what she had endured for him, but the guilt tied her tongue. She had no right to demand love when she herself had stopped believing she deserved it. Then came the night of the confrontation. It was raining, the kind of heavy rain that makes the city hum with loneliness. Ian came home past midnight, his clothes soaked, eyes red. She rushed toward him, panicked. "Where have you been?" she asked, her voice rising. He threw his wet backpack onto the floor, water splashing across the tiles. "Why do you care? You're too busy playing happy with him." Her heart stopped. The sharpness of his words felt like a blade. "Don't talk to me like that, Ian," she whispered. He laughed bitterly. "Why not? You talk to everyone else like they matter more." His words poured out in bursts, sears of hurt unraveling in minutes. "You think I didn't hear you crying every night? You think I didn't know you wished Dad would come back? You never wanted me to choose sides, but you already did. You replaced him. You replaced us." Tears blurred her vision as she reached for him, but he stepped back, his voice trembling. "You broke this family, and now you're pretending you can fix it. You can't, Mom. You just can't." For the first time, she saw the boy beneath his rage, the scared, abandoned child who only wanted his mother to hold him again. But all she could do was stand there, drowning in the rain, watching him walk away. The house was quiet after that night, but not the peaceful kind of quiet. It was the silence that followed after something had been broken too violently to repair. Nadia barely slept. She sat awake in her room, listening to the distant sound of Ian pacing in his. Sometimes she heard him cry, muffled sobs pressed into his pillow, the same way he did when he was a little boy afraid of the dark. She wanted to go to him, to wrap her arms around him and whisper that everything would be okay, but her feet refused to move. The fear of rejection, of making things worse, kept her frozen in place. Days passed like ghosts, slow and heavy. Ian spoke only when necessary, his tone cold and sharp, but what hurt her most was the look in his eyes, disappointment mixed with pain. One morning she found his school bag dumped on the couch and a note beside it. "Don't wait up. I'll be late." There was no explanation, no emotion, just a distance that made her chest ache. She spent that day in a fog, glancing at the clock every few minutes, hoping he would come home early. When he finally did, it was well past midnight. He smelled faintly of smoke and rain, and his clothes were disheveled. "Where were you?" she asked, trying to sound calm. He didn't answer, just brushed past her, muttering, "Out with people who actually get me." That sentence lingered in the air like poison. People who actually get me. It told her everything she feared, that he was slipping away, seeking understanding from strangers because he couldn't find it with her. Later that night, she heard a noise from his room and walked in without knocking. He was sitting on the floor, his shoulders shaking, a photograph of their family in his hands, the one taken at the beach before everything went wrong. "Why couldn't we stay like that?" he whispered, his voice cracking. She knelt beside him, tears spilling down her face. "I wish we could, Ian. I wish I knew how to keep us together." For a brief moment, he didn't pull away. His head dropped onto her shoulder, and she felt the weight of all his anger melt into quiet exhaustion. "You're supposed to protect me," he murmured, "not make me feel like I'm the one holding everything together." Her arms tightened around him, but her heart broke at his words. The storm inside him wasn't just about his father or Rihan. It was about feeling unseen, unheard, unloved in the one place that should have been safe. In the days that followed, they spoke more tentatively, carefully, as if walking barefoot on glass. Some nights, he'd sit with her at dinner without saying much, but the silence had changed. It was softer now, fragile but hopeful. He wasn't ready to forgive, and she wasn't ready to forget. But for the first time in years, They were both willing to stay in the same room, breathing through the pain together, letting it hurt until it healed.